room service. If I like, I order twice. Hibachi, got the gravy on the rice. Rolling in Mexico.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome into this Sunday night episode of the Steelers Q&A. My name is Jeremy Betts, and we are going to get ready to rock and roll here on this show. I know we're starting a little bit later than I normally do, but we are trying to work around my guest schedule tonight a little bit, and I was putting the little one to bed, and it took a little bit longer than it sometimes it does. As she gets a little older, you know how it goes. If you have got kids, they like to work the clock on you real good as it's coming down to the end of the fourth quarter of daytime and it's ready for bed. So, but welcoming in my guest for tonight, Andrew Wilbar. Andrew, we don't do enough shows together, so I figured we'd do another one. Let's do it.
Hey, I always enjoy talking football with you, especially the NFL draft. I'm dealing with a little bit of a sinus infection and not sure what is going on tonight with my full schedule. Still waiting on something. So if you see me pop out early, it is not to the fault of Jeremy or I'm just tired of talking to him. It's because there's other stuff that I'm tending to. But am looking forward to be on here for at least the time being.
Yes, absolutely. So let's dive into it. I mean, we got to get some people here in the chat. We got to get some questions. So this show, since I've got Andrew on, let's just call this our pre-draft primer for the Steelers Q&A. Okay, so how will the Steelers approach the NFL draft is the title of the show, just generic enough to get us by with a title. But if you've got questions in the chat about prospects, about position groups the Steelers might target, any of that you want to talk about, let's dive into it. Hit them hard and heavy. Just throw names of prospects in the chat here, and I will get to those, pull those up, and we'll talk about them. If you got specific questions about strategy or whatever, we can dive into that too. But Andrew, this draft class, we've talked about it on all of our other shows. It's a unique one. It's kind of drops off after the first couple days, where and even specific position groups sooner than that, and then some specific position groups aren't good at all throughout the whole breadth of the draft. So there are lots of different ways the Steelers could address this, but how do you see the Pittsburgh Steelers, no second round pick, what is their way of attacking this draft the way you've been like scouting them this year? Are they going to be an attacking group? Or are they going to kind of let the board come to them? How do you see them approaching this year?
I think they're going to let the board come to them for the most part. I think the wild card in all of it is the quarterback situation, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen. We think that the Steelers are looking more toward next year with the compensatory formula. But does that change if the Steelers don't get Aaron Rodgers and they get a little impatient and want to pursue the quarterback this year? I mean, there's going to be options there for the Steelers, not just in the first round, but maybe even on day 2 as well. What happens to Shedeur Sanders? Does he go 3 or does he go 30? Like, we still don't know where he's going to fall. Jackson Dart could go ahead of him. Jackson Dart could still be there at 21. Who do the Steelers like? That's the big caveat in all of it. We've talked about before how this is not a very good draft in general. It's not because there's a lack of talent, but the talent either did not perform or the talent got injured, and there's major concerns with all of that. So yeah. I think just from a broad perspective, unless there's a player you are completely set on, I'm letting the draft fall to me. I'll choose the best of what's left. And if I don't like what's there, I'll trade back and try to accumulate picks in next year's draft. I think that's the philosophy the Steelers need to use. I'm not sure if that's what they will or not, but they did not do a whole lot in free agency to try to not irritate the compensatory formula. So barring quarterback, I would imagine that they're going to focus on immediate needs that they have.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. And we'll see how it all plays out with the quarterbacks. Like, I think we're pretty much in the boat that it's not going to be a day 1 guy. It's probably going to be a day 2 or day 3 type guy that the Steelers are looking at from the quarterback perspective. But you never know. There could be something weird happen. I mean, the reports were today, guess who's getting a draft invite to sit in the green room? Jalen Milroe. I mean, what's going on with that? Are we missing something with him? Is there a team that's really high on him? Are there going to be a couple teams that trade back up into the first round maybe to go get quarterbacks at the back end of that? And is Milroe one of those guys? So as always, Andrew, we think we know kind of the basic gist of everything. We don't know squat until it actually happens. And that is part of the fun of the draft and why we love it so much. But let's go ahead and get into some of these questions here. Keep them coming. Afton Forehead asks first, which running backs would fit our team? Andrew, I'm sure you got a list of those guys, but go ahead and open us up with a group of running backs that would fit the Pittsburgh Steelers in this draft class.
Well, I mentioned DJ Giddens before, maybe even on this show. I think he's a guy who doesn't have a great power in between the tackles, but if you're talking about a guy with patience and acceleration, not in the exact same style as Le'Veon Bell, but I think there's some similarities when you watch their two games and watch how their games translate to the NFL. I think there's a few similarities there. And even Jaylen Warren is not the biggest back in the world. He runs with a lot of power and he runs low to the ground. He's a compact runner. So if the Steelers see him as such and see him as a guy who could be more of an early down back and be a guy that can win on the goal line, they could go for a guy like Giddens or a Dylan Sampson, the guy who could provide the extra speed element that they don't have. I think if you're talking about keeping Warren in his general sense of being kind of that third down guy, pass catcher, change of pace back, if that's what the Steelers see of him, I think you're looking at more of a Quinshon Judkins. If he still happens to fall in the third round, he could be decent value. I know you have a guy, your running back from Iowa, who you really like, could be a nice fit for the Steelers as well. But again, the Steelers do not need to rush the running back spot. This is the deepest position in this draft by a long shot. I have currently 34 running backs with draftable grades, and there are some that are going to fall to day 3. I mean, Cam Skattebo and Donovan Edwards could easily be bell cow running backs in the NFL. There's a higher than 50% chance they don't get taken until day 3, which is absolutely insane after looking at the year that Skattebo had this year and the year Edwards had the year before. Either of those guys, if they fall to the Steelers in 4th, 5th round, I'll take them all day, pair them with Warren, and and then you got Kenneth Gainwell too is another option. I would be more than fine going into the season with that.
Warren and Gainwell give you a ton of flexibility with how you can attack the draft at this point. You don't in 2021 when they took Najee Harris, they were looking for a 3-down, do it all, run the wheels off, Le'Veon Bell type back. They don't have to do that this year.
No, they don't. They really don't. And you mentioned Gainwell. He's that guy who can be that pass catcher, even if they don't see Jaylen Warren as a guy. If maybe they do want Warren to take some more early down responsibilities, you do have a change of pace guy in Gainwell, who the team obviously likes. Obviously, Weidl's connection to Philly, I believe he was still there when they brought in Gainwell. So there's a familiarity there. Obviously, there's a belief that he can be a true change of pace guy. So they could be he could be a lot higher on him than even a lot of Steelers fans, including myself, are.
Yeah, absolutely. When I look at fits, my number one fit is Caleb Johnson. I don't know if he's going to be there when the Steelers pick in the 3rd round. There's a chance. A lot of people are pretty high on Quinshon Judkins. There's a contingent out there that think he could go at the back end of the 1st round. I think that's reaching. I think that's a little much for what we saw on his tape. A lot of people like Travion Henderson. What do you like? It's kind of going to be the order that these guys come off on and the order that the teams are picking in the draft, but it's going to be a lot of fun to see how that position plays out. Let's see here. Brian Brown with the jokes tonight. Should the Steelers draft a punter in the 1st round? I'm kidding. I meant quarterback. Andrew, I've got another quarterback question in here. Let's just kind of combine them here. Steeler Chick 46 says, Shedeur Sanders, if he falls, do we take him? What's your general thought on the quarterbacks? I'm pretty clear. I don't want a day 1 quarterback. I don't care who falls to me unless it's Cam Ward, which isn't happening. You can lock him in as the 1st pick in the draft. Anybody else? I do not want a 1st round quarterback in 2025. Are you on the same page as me?
100% I am. Absolutely. If Shedeur Sanders falls, I don't think the Steelers would consider it after what they've had to deal with Aaron Rodgers over the last month. Is he in? Is he out? And Shedeur Sanders, I feel like he's being a little discredited in this draft because everyone's like, oh, all the drama surrounding the Sanders name. Well, at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders can't control that. Like Shedeur Sanders, for the most part, like maybe he didn't interview quite as well as Cam Ward did or Jackson Dart did. But at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders, he's a solid quarterback. I'm not knocking him as a player of sort. I just don't think he's a guy who's going to be going out there playing on the same level as a Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow. He's another one of those guys you got to have a lot around. My comparison for him was Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott still has not won a Super Bowl or really come super, super close to one. So I think you're in a similar situation. Dak's had some pretty good teams around him too. And I think if you're Shedeur Sanders, if you want any shot at him leading your team to a Super Bowl, you've got to have almost a perfect roster. It's not to say he's not going to be a starting quarterback in this league. I think he can be, and I would bet that he will be. But can he be that top 7 or 8 quarterback that is going to put you in the thick of it year in and year out? I just don't see it.
Right. And that's why I'm saying you wait till next year, because there's going to be a better chance that one of those guys exists in next year's draft as opposed to this year's draft. Let's see here. So with that in mind, George T asks, which quarterbacks can we dismiss in this draft? Which ones do we not want to see in Pittsburgh? And he clarifies on my question about quarterbacks. I meant out of the top 7 or so, I would say like quarterbacks. So the top guys, let's just list those off. We got Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck, let's say Colin McCord, and Will Howard. Of those 7 guys ish, which of those would you dismiss as logical options for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I would dismiss Tyler Shuck because of age, not because
Okay.
I don't think he could potentially be a starter. I don't want to deal with that necessarily. I would rather go with a younger guy like Milroe. If the Steelers go that direction on day 2, he would be the one that I would more than any of them. I would say Jackson Dart and Shedeur Sanders because they would require a first-round pick for the Steelers to do that, or trading up into the second, which I wouldn't want to do for either of those either. I think they could both be starters, but again, just as we talked about with Sanders, I think Dart may have a little bit more hidden upside because of the moxie that he has, but I still don't love his fit in Pittsburgh. Whereas I think there could be a couple of the better landing spots for him. I throw Quinn Ewers in there as well because I know that he's a guy who's considered to be a potential day 2 quarterback as well. I just don't think he has the arm strength to ever be an elite starter. He's got good touch, but defenders are going to be able to close on the ball so much more quickly because he doesn't have that elite arm, and that is my concern with him. Can he zip balls in tight windows? He hasn't proven he can do that yet.
Yeah. So for me, the guys in that group that I would be willing to take are, well, Cam Ward's not happening, so let's just erase him, right? So the guys I'd be willing to take are Jalen Milroe. I might be willing to take Tyler Shuck if he's still there in the 3rd round, but I just don't think he's going to be, because I think the quarterback that the Steelers are looking for this year is their backup for the future.
Right.
So I would be fine with that if he's just going to kind of be your high floor backup quarterback. I'm fine with that. But if I'm playing for upside for anybody, it's Milroe, it's McCord, and it's my guy, Will Howard. So those are the 3 guys to me that I would be taking a chance on in this draft. So let's move on to the next question. Any chance you think Tyler Warren will be available at 21? I tend to think no. I think he's going to get pushed up because of the lack of elite pass catchers overall in this draft. I think you've got 3 guys that are first round worthy at the wide receiver spot, maybe 4 that are wide receivers. And then you've got the 2 tight ends. So when you're talking about pass catching playmakers, Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland are going to be just as highly sought after in this draft as the wide receivers. We've got a question a little bit later on about Ted McMillan. Why has he fallen down draft boards? Would the Steelers pass on him at 21? Let's talk about the pass catchers here, Andrew. Tyler Warren, Ted McMillan. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and who are you thinking gets to you of those 2 guys?
I think Ted McMillan could easily fall. I think Denver at 20 will be interesting. See what they do there. They have several needs on offense. They could go tight end if one happens to drop to them. I don't think at this point one of them does, unless they go for a Mason Taylor or Elijah Arroyo. Be a little bit of a reach. But I think when you look at Ted McMillan, the reason he's falling is the speed. He ran a mid 4.5 40 at his pro day, which isn't a killer. But when you're talking about elite prospects, guys who could potentially be those blue chip players in this draft, it's hard to see McMillan as that long term. He's not Mike Evans. He doesn't have the speed. He's very much more of a Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's a good receiver in this league. He's a very solid receiver who's a he can be a number 1 receiver for your team. If you got a good quarterback play, he can be a solid 1, low end 1. And
which
I think
they haven't had good quarterback play, so it's really hurt his stock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's Ted McMillan. He is a guy who will be a very solid number 1, but he's not a guy who can transcend poor quarterback play or poor offenses to become this dominant receiver like you see. And, Sam Darnold comes in and Justin Jefferson really helps him become that type of quarterback that we've never seen out of Sam Darnold in the NFL. He's not that type of receiver. And if he's not that type of a receiver, why are you taking him top 10, top 12? So I think we just, at some point in the draft process, we all kind of reevaluated Ted McMillan and we're like, okay, he's a good receiver, but is he good enough to really go top 10, top 15, where he's this blue chip prospect? Could he still go that high? Maybe if a team falls in love with him, it only takes 1 team. But if I am there, if I'm in the room, I'm taking a guy like Matthew Golden, who's got that elite speed, a chance to truly become a Tyreek Hill type player. Or I'm going to take a Luther Burden, who's great on contested catches, great down the field, super explosive after the catch. The guys who can truly be game changers. I don't think Tet McMillan can be that.
Sure. Here's my take on Tyler Warren or Tet McMillan or Shedeur Sanders, any of these guys falling to 21. What you do if you're Pittsburgh is you answer every phone call, you take the best deal, and you move back, and you acquire some more picks. To me, neither of those three guys move the needle for what the Steelers are building, where they're at with their roster, to where I'm like, I'm taking one of them, can't miss prospect without backing out. So if Tet McMillan is available at 21 or Tyler Warren's available at 21, and a team like Buffalo wants a Tet McMillan on their roster, or the Kansas City Chiefs, they want their heir apparent to Travis Kelce, I'm answering that phone call and I'm taking the road back. Or Shedeur Sanders is available at 21, and the New York Giants, who passed on him in the first round, are calling you and saying, I want in the first round again. I'm willing to give you a load of picks here. I'm answering that phone call too. So that's kind of my take. If the Steelers get one of those, ooh, how did this guy end up here players? The only players I'm not doing that for are like Ashton Genty, because he's a position of need for the Steelers. He would help them right away. Mason Graham, if somehow, some way he were to fall. But, I mean, that's just not happening. And one thing I will say about Tyler Warren, he's only had like one visit from the top 10 players, or from the top 10 picks in this draft, which is very interesting to me. That sounds like either people are holding their cards close to their vest, or he's probably going to go in the mid-teens somewhere just because of the position he plays and some of the other needs of teams that are picking higher in the draft. So that's my take on those players. Let's go ahead and take a break real quick. When we come back, we'll answer more of your questions. Keep them coming. If you're listening live, we're not going anywhere, obviously. And if you are listening on audio, we'll be right back after this. And welcome back to the Steelers Q&A Sunday night here with Andrew Wilbar. We are busting through your questions about the NFL draft. I'm really excited. I think we're going to be doing some of our live stream work again that we did with Steel Curtain Network and Fans First Sports last year. Andrew and I will be a part of that. I know Jeff's working on some of those things behind the scenes. We're going to hear some announcement about that here I'm sure very soon, but we're excited for it. Andrew and I do the Draft Dynasty podcast, which is a league-wide look at the draft, so not necessarily Steelers-specific, but that's going to air. Our final show before the draft is going to air on Thursday of the draft that morning. So check that out. Get your final NFL draft primer. But here for the live Steelers show here on the Q&A, we're going to do that for you as well. Let's see. This is a fun question, Andrew, that I'd love your opinion on, because there's differing viewpoints on the linebackers here. Brian Brown asks, who is the top middle linebacker in the draft? You know, we all talk about Jahad Campbell. We all talk about Jalen Walker. We all talk about those two guys specifically as kind of the front runners there. But does anybody else slide into that conversation? Could either of those two guys drop? Who's the first one off the board? Your thoughts on the top middle linebacker?
Well, I think the interesting thing about this question is there's going to be a lot of teams that have both Jahad Campbell and Jalen Walker not listed as a middle linebacker. They'll have him listed as an off-ball / edge guy who can play more the edge, be a pass rushing guy, or maybe he'll play a will in a 4-3 system and not be a true middle linebacker. I think of the two right now, I'm still have the higher grade on Jahad Campbell. He was the guy I was high on first. I like both of these players. I think they're both very good, have intriguing skill sets. Both are going to be good players in the NFL. But I think initially my top grade is going to go to a guy like Jahad Campbell. He has a more complete game overall. Jalen Walker's an insane athlete. He really is. And I think he's probably more likely to go high. I could see Campbell slipping a little bit because of the injury concern. But if you put those two names away, I think the interesting name to talk about is Carson Schweizinger from UCLA. This guy is rising on boards. He tested better athletically than I think people expected. And you watch his tape. He's a tackle machine. He has good instincts. He's sound in just about every facet of the game. There's very little to not like about what you see in Carson Schweizinger's game. Maybe not the same upside as a Campbell or a Walker, but I think you're going to see a guy who's very productive in the league for years to come.
Yeah, I agree with that take. He's really rising up boards. Barrett Carter out of Clemson's kind of a late riser in this process too. I've been seeing his name mentioned a lot. You had a guy like Danny Stutzman who had just a great off-season workout, and his tape's really solid. So he's not going in the first round. He's not the top middle linebacker in the draft, but he is a guy to keep an eye on on day 2. I think he's going to go probably in round 2. He's got that type of profile, round 2 or 3. Good question, Brian. Let's get to a couple others here. Let's see. Doug Penny says defensive line, offensive tackle, wideout, corner. I'm assuming because of where this was put in that these are the position groups that he would take in the first round if he were picking for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I would personally throw in wide receiver. Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. He says wideout. Sorry, I missed that. I was looking for receiver. Defensive line, offensive tackle, wide receiver, corner. Andrew, if you had to rank these 4 position groups for which one you'd like to see taken in the first round, how would you do that?
Defensive line has to be first. Okay. I would probably move corner to number 2, depending on who's available. I'm not going to reach for a Max Harrison or a Zaire Thomas, but I do, if for some reason Jedi Barron fell, he would be very difficult to pass on for me. I'm a huge fan of his. I would move corner up. I would agree. Other than that, I'm not opposed to offensive tackle. I wouldn't be opposed to interior offensive line. I think the Steelers need to add some depth there as well. If Tyler Booker was there, I think he'd be a solid guard. You could pair with Sayamalo and Mason McCormick. There's some options there. Offensive tackle would be something that you'd probably want to wait until round 2, depending on who's available. The top guy, Armand Membu, will be gone. There's a drop-off after him. So I don't know I would go the tackle route, considering the Steelers have done 2 in the most recent years. 2 of the last 3 years gone offensive tackle. So I would put corner number 2. But other than that, I don't disagree with anything that was mentioned.
Yeah. As we sit here today, with the way that the Steelers have structured their top 30 visits for players, the guys that they focus on, I think wide receiver is higher up their wish list than it has been ours. If Matthew Golden is there at 21 right now, I would say he's the pick. I think that they've been making it very clear that they really like him as a prospect in this draft. And I think that they would take him over Derek Harmon or Kenneth Grant at that spot personally. Now, if he is not there and the defensive tackle group is still looking pretty strong and they don't get a good offer to move back, I think defensive tackle is the first thing coming off the board for them. When I look at the draft, Andrew, and I think we agree here, I think the defensive tackle class has better players further down the board than the wide receiver group does. So if I'm the Steelers and I really want one of each, then I'm probably going to take the scarcer position group early and the defensive tackle, which has a little bit more depth to it, down the road. So, and that's not me hating on the wide receiver class. I think that there's still some good players on day 2 that you can get, say round 3 or whatever, but they seem to, based on what we're seeing pre-draft, they seem to think Matthew Golden is a special player. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the first round pick if he's there. So I'm going to say the Steelers are looking at this from, if Matthew Golden's there, wide receiver is our top priority, then defensive line. I think the swing tackle, I think that they're going to look to do that in free agency. I don't know if they want a rookie competing with Broderick Jones at left tackle, or even at right tackle with Fautanu. They were really, really like bound and determined to play Fautanu at right tackle last year. So we'll see how it plays out, I guess. It would be on my needs list to go get offensive line. I would say probably interior offensive line before the offensive tackle. Go figure that out after the draft and free agency, but corner's up there too. So I'd probably go wide receiver, defensive line, corner, offensive tackle in that order if I were picking these 4 position groups here.
Jeremy, I'm going to let you know right now that I have to head out.
No worries.
I talked to Jeremy pre-show, but thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Jeremy, for letting me on. Hopefully we can talk again at some point as the draft nears. So.
Thanks, Andrew, for your input. We'll talk to you later, man.
Yes, thank you.
All right. That's going to be it for Andrew. That's okay. We are going to keep rolling here with answering your questions. Thanks to Andrew for hopping on. As always, when he is available, it is Great stuff. Thank you all for your questions. We're going right through these and doing a great job here. Craig, I like your thought process there about those position groups. I just think the Steelers are probably higher on receiver than we're talking about. So let's do this here. And Afton, your question here, which position would you most like to fill with a first-round pick? If I'm the one making the selections, I don't know. I really would like that defensive tackle. I'd like one of those elite guys to plug into the defensive line. But I would not mind a wide receiver pick either. I think that is important for team building. It's one of the premier positions in football now. So I would not hate that either if they did go wide receiver, but I would probably limit it to those two position groups. There's been a lot of talk about the safeties. Nick Emmanwori is getting a lot of run with Pittsburgh Steelers brass. So if the safety group is there, they might make that play if he's at 21, but I would not be quite as fulfilled and satisfied with the first round pick if it is a safety. So give me a defensive tackle or a wide receiver. Give me an elite one, a blue chip talent at those positions for my first round pick here. John S., you've got a question about 2026. So I'm going to answer that one in just a little bit here. I'm going to take a few more of these this year questions. Ron C. says, do you think they should look at defensive end to replace Cam Hayward? Absolutely. One of those 3-4 DN types. Derek Harmon is a great plug for that. JJ Peggies that they brought in for a visit is a great fill for that. He's a lot of fun as like a 3-tech defensive tackle. You might not play him out at the 5-tech as much, which is where Cam likes to play. But there are some other guys in here. Darius Alexander is a great option there. Keanu Benton can do that if you want to go get a defensive nose tackle that can take part in some of the run stopping stuff and let Keanu Benton get out wide. I think that would be beneficial for him and for the Steelers. So I do think that is a priority. Thank you for your question there. Let's see. Doug P says Pittsburgh needs to go back to grabbing the best player available instead of position picking. I definitely do agree. I think that we have gotten to a point as an organization. It's been this way for a long time. Under Kevin Colbert, it was that way for the whole second half of his career there in Pittsburgh, it felt like, especially the 2015 and on. The Steelers kind of really fell into best player at a position of need as the first round pick instead of best player available. In this draft, because of the lack of quality overall, especially at the top, like the lack of true first round talents, I would be totally fine with the Steelers taking best player available. But let me ask you this. If the best player available that falls to you is Tyler Warren, how do you fit that into your offense? I just don't know how that fits. I know Arthur Smith is the tight end guru, but they've got more tight ends than they know what to do with already. And they just paid big money to Pat Freiermuth. So that's why I would be a little bit hesitant with the best player available at all costs. Like Emmanwori makes sense. If he's still there at 21, that's probably your best player available. Or maybe Ashton Jeanty falls a little bit to like 15 or something like that. You could go get him as best player available. Maybe Derek Harmon's the best player available at 21 and you just want to stick and pick. That makes sense to me. But you do have to play the position game a little bit based on what you have on your roster, what's under contract, and how to move forward from there. So it's a whole type of game, right? It is maybe the most intricate game that is played in sports, the NFL draft. So for that reason, I would say you have to look at it from both ways here. That is just kind of how I see it. So Mark Cunningham says, I would love to see us find a way to get another pick in the top 100. What do you guys think? I think that would be fantastic, especially in that second round range, or maybe an early third round pick, something in that type of range where you don't miss out on that second wave of prospects. That's where a lot of the running backs are going to go. That's where, heck, if you go defensive tackle in the first round, that's where a lot of the next tier wide receivers are going to go. Offensive lineman is the same conversation. So to me, I would love to get another pick in the top 100. And Omar Khan has openly stated that he would love to do that as well. So that is in play. It really is. How do they do that though? Is it trading a current player on the roster. A lot of you probably saw my article on Steel Curtain Network, my wild and wacky Steelers mock draft, where I had them trading away Minkah Fitzpatrick and George Pickens for a second and third round selection in the draft. So they did some work there, and I also had them trading back in the first round with Buffalo. And picking up an extra fourth round pick in this draft and a second next year. So there's a lot of ways that they could attack adding more picks. I would love to see them grab another pick in the top 100. I love the draft. I like to see my team make as many picks as they possibly can. Young players are the key to future success. So drafting well is important, and you have to have picks to be able to draft. I mean, you have to have picks to be able to draft well, unless you really, really nail your limited selections. The Steelers have 6 selections. I'd love to see them get a 7th or even an 8th in this draft before the end of things. Sorry, my dog is looking at the ceiling and I have no idea at what. So thought maybe a spider was about to jump on my head. Let's go. Let's see. I'm going to look through the list here. While I'm doing that, here's the 2026 question from John S. Can I ask about 2026? Absolutely, you can. We are looking ahead early to that class as well. What are your early insights on Cade Klubnik? He's a guy I'm watching to rise. What are your thoughts on him? Okay, so my granddad is a huge Clemson Tigers fan. In the time that Cade Klubnik was at Clemson, I was not a fan. So I think that there's something to be said for like the size, the athleticism of Klubnik, and the fact that he was highly touted, highly recruited out of college as well. So I don't know. There's some parts to love about his game. Sorry, he's still at Clemson. I don't know why I thought he left Clemson. I get him and Kyle McCord mixed up in my head for some reason. So still at Clemson, and this is a guy 6'2", 210, kind of fits the size requisite, minimum size requisites that you want. He's got good athleticism. I am watching him for development in 2026 or for the 2026 draft, but I would not be. I don't think at this point I'm all in on him as being in that top tier of guys. So we'll see how it plays out. But for now, Cade Klubnik is kind of I'm on the fence with Cade Klubnik. I see some of the talent. I see the upside. I just need to see it be a little more consistent. I need him to be a better decision maker. Those are the biggest things that I have for 2025 for him to jump into that tier of guys. So yes, watching him to rise. No, I don't think he's there yet, but I'm hoping that he will be eventually. Steeler Chick 46. Thank you for spending the end of your birthday with your Steelers friends. We appreciate that. No higher honor, in my opinion, than you joining us here on your birthday. And it is a Sunday night, so I don't know, what you had planned or anything like that, but thanks for spending it with us. We appreciate it. Let's see. I wanted to bring up a comment you made earlier, Steeler Chick 46, running back from Iowa is awesome. Yes, that's my guy, Caleb Johnson. If you watch Derek Bell from Steelers Now, that's his guy too. Okay, he's the best fit for Pittsburgh in this draft class. It would be amazing if he ended up in Pittsburgh. I just don't know if he's going to get there in the third round. And I don't think they would take him in the first. My take, I would trade up into the second round to go get him if he starts to fall. Just with the lack of depth in this class, I would send late round picks, anything 5th round and later, to somebody to move up. I don't know if anybody will take that. But that's what I would do. I would talk about moving up for a Caleb Johnson because of the fit. So that is something that I would do. And you've got another great question that I mentioned. Yes, or you said, could we trade a vet like Minkah for draft picks or higher draft pick? Absolutely. Absolutely we could. I've been on that train. I've kind of been alone on it. When I mentioned it in my mock draft, a lot of people didn't like it. So we'll see. I get the argument that he's a great player, that he still provides you, something that you would not get by replacing him in this draft. But I also think that there was a little bit of a rift there in their relationship. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't think the Steelers are averse to doing anything really at the right price. So they do not have that guy on the roster outside of TJ Watt and Cam Hayward, those two guys specifically, that I don't think that if they got the right offer for, that they would have a problem with moving. And Minkah Fitzpatrick is one of those guys. Afton Forehead, is Wyatt Milam someone you'd look at? I think he's overrated in this draft class because of the lack of overall depth at the offensive line group. But he's experienced. He's a former teammate of Zach Frazier. He is somebody that the Steelers brought in for a visit, so there's some interest there. He's got good size, good length, very technically unsound. He needs a lot of work from that regard, even though he's experienced. But he's someone I'd look at, but not as early as he's being projected to go. I wouldn't take him with my third round pick personally. So we'll see how that plays out, but good question there. Adam Vinchik, if Grant is not there at 21, do you think a trade down is more likely if they find the right partner? So Kenneth Grant, okay, early on in the process, I thought that this was going to be their guy. But then Mike Tomlin came out and said that when they're looking at defensive line, they don't want the one-trick ponies, right? They don't want the early down only guys. And that's what Kenneth Grant would be, upside taken into consideration here. That would be what he would be early in his career, as an early down defensive run stopper, maybe a pocket pusher if on play action or something like that. A big guy to get his hands up in the air and bat down passes. Could he develop into something more than that over time, into a guy who can play on passing downs? Sure. I think he's got the athleticism to do that, but I don't think that he is kind of the, if he's not there at 21, what do we do? Let's get out of here. I think that there are other guys that they would want more. But yeah, when it comes to the trade down, I think that they're very likely to trade down if the right partner is available. They want to recoup picks. They've already said that they do. So I think that that's going to be part of the battle plans for them. We'll see how they can move about it. Let's see. AFL 67. Do you see what Kyle Hamilton does for Ravens? So I would not be upset with the safety. That tracks, makes sense. Nick Manwari is a little bit different player than Kyle Hamilton. Hamilton was a rangy ball hawking safety in college, right? He was a closer on the back end. And yes, he came up and played in run sport. Yes, he covered in the slot. Yes, he does that a lot more at the NFL level. But as far as athletic profile goes, Nick Manwari is far superior of an athlete than even Kyle Hamilton is. I don't know if the instincts are all there like Hamilton has, but athletically, this guy is a generational athlete. He is the highest graded RAS or highest scoring RAS player at strong safety in RAS history. Number one, 10 out of 10, 10.00 overall. So that is something to consider. If he's there at safety and you want a playmaker on the back end, that's fine. I would like that. And he can do a little bit of everything, but I think early you're going to want to play him up in the box. We'll see how the Steelers would attack that, though. They have been very interested in him. Okay, CJ Murph, if Nolan or Harmon are gone, I'm moving back. Walter Nolan's not getting the talk that he should be in the first round selection. I just watched his tape again because I was wondering why he's not being talked about. And this guy is a spark plug. He's just really good. I don't know why he's not getting the run of Derek Harmon. He deserves to be in that conversation. I think Harmon's a little bit more put together overall, a little bit more of a fit for the length that the Steelers usually look for at their 3-4 defensive end spot. But if Nolan's there at 21 and Matthew Golden's gone, Derek Harmon's gone, it would be tempting to me to make him my first round pick. I would not hate that. That would make sense. So I thank you for bringing up Nolan in this conversation. He is not being talked about enough. Let's see here. Let me address this. Gene Smith, 2026 is Arch year. Let me throw this out here, okay? Arch Manning, if he declares in 2026, 90% chance he's going number 1 overall. The only way the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be in play to come up and get the number 1 overall pick is if everybody of significance gets hurt in 2025 and they absolutely cannot win ball games. They just can't do it. Or the more likely scenario is that they are willing to trade the farm, sell the whole farm, everything they've got in 2026 that's worthwhile, everything they got in 2027 that's worthwhile to move up and to get to number 1 overall. And it would have to be for a team that doesn't need a quarterback. And if you're picking number 1 overall, you usually need a quarterback. Usually. There's only a few teams in the conversation for the number 1 overall pick that I would say are not quarterback needy teams. The Patriots might be in that conversation, although I think they have a really good year this year in comparison to previous years. They get the coach bump. They've got a quarterback now. Let's see. Who else could be down there? The Giants could be down there if they don't take a quarterback this year. Or if they do take a quarterback this year, they could be in that position where, okay, we've got Shedeur Sanders on the roster. We stunk it up this last year. But he's the guy that we're going to try to build around, much like the Patriots, right? But anybody else really, if they end up in the first round pick spot, maybe Tennessee, right? They just get Cam Ward and they end up number 1 overall again. They're not going to want to trade out of there unless they can stay in the top 5 or 6 and still get their quarterback. So I think Arch is probably out of the conversation for Pittsburgh. That is even if he comes out in 2026, which he may not. He may stay and play another year at Texas or go somewhere else. I don't know. There is a lot at stake for him. Name, reputation, right? The chance to lead a college team for a couple years. Where he wants to go play, depending on who that first round or first overall pick is going to be in 2026, he may decide that he wants to stick around for another year in college. So I would not set your sights on Arch, Gene. I wouldn't. I just don't think that that's going to be feasible, even if he comes out next year. I would be setting my sights on a guy like Drew Aller or the kid from Tennessee, who I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. There's a few other guys. Cade Klubnik might end up being in that conversation, right? Garrett Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers, those guys that you would consider potentially top 10 picks next year, top 15 picks in that Roethlisberger pick 11 range, that would make more sense. I think Arch Manning is probably going to be out of the discussion by the time that the Steelers get to 2026, unfortunately. Gene, I must have missed where you said something about Tyleik Williams. Tyleik Williams is amazing. If the Steelers were to trade back in the first round and pick him up close to 30 or something like that, I would love that. This guy is an athletic freak. He's just a freak, and he would fit the Steelers team really well. I like him a lot. So thank you for bringing up his name. Not seeing where you said it earlier, but let's see here. Trying to get through some more of these. Afton Forehead says Arch was never in play for Pittsburgh. I kind of tend to agree with you there, Afton. The Steelers would have to have earned the first overall pick for him to be their guy next year, and I just don't see that happening. And yes, Arch Manning, I think he just turned 20 or is about to turn 20. He is young, you guys, very, very young. So we'll see. All right. That's all the questions I'm seeing. Let me see if I've got anything in my starred spot. Yes, let me pull this up from Steeler Chick 46. Am I negative for not wanting Rodgers as quarterback? I think it's a matter of perspective, obviously, but I tend to think that if you're not wanting Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, you're just in for the ride to 2026, which is fine. And that is a totally fine way to approach this thing. If that's how the Steelers end up going, then I'm fine with that. If Mason Rudolph is their starter, Aaron Rodgers doesn't come to Pittsburgh, and they are just riding it out to 2026, that is fine with me. Absolutely 100% fine. However, if you want to be competitive in 2025 and then use the picks that you're garnering for 2026 to move up and get your quarterback for the future, then Rodgers is the way to do that. He just is. He makes a lot of sense as that guy. He may very well have one more run in him. He played better than either Steeler quarterback last year. Okay. Justin Fields and Russell Wilson combined, Aaron Rodgers was better. The team that he played for was falling apart. The organization fell apart. The fact that they only won however many games it was, 5-6 games, that was not on Aaron Rodgers. Wins are not a quarterback stat. They're just not. So they are a team stat. That it's about how your team does. He was not the whole team. In Pittsburgh, Aaron Rodgers, has been my argument, so let me try to share it with you to make you feel more at ease about it. If Aaron Rodgers agrees to come to Pittsburgh, he is not the face of this franchise. He will not be the savior of the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's not what he's coming here for. He's coming to help them be competitive for one more year before they go get their guy in 2026. He will not have the pull that he does or did in New York as the savior of that franchise. For an owner who doesn't know what the heck he's doing in football, Woody Johnson, that team is an organizational catastrophe. The Pittsburgh Steelers, while they have their issues, are not an organizational catastrophe, okay? They have solid ownership leadership. Their head coach is the face of the franchise. He will call the shots. Aaron Rodgers will be balanced by the fact that TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Mike Tomlin are bigger personalities and figures in that locker room than he will ever be. He is the mercenary quarterback coming in. Okay. That's all he is. That is all he would be. Would he push the Steelers to open things up a little bit on offense? Absolutely. In that way, I think that he could balance out the worst of Mike Tomlin and his conservative nature, and Mike Tomlin and company will balance out the worst of Aaron Rodgers' me first behavior, because it won't be about him in Pittsburgh. So take that for what it's worth. Got 118 of you listening in the chat here. Listen to what I'm saying. I do not believe, I could be wrong. Yes. I do not believe, I feel it in my gut, that Aaron Rodgers would leave behind any of the issues that he left behind in New York, and that he would bring with him maybe 10% of the baggage that he brought with him to New York. It's just not their same position that he'll be in. Yeah, he's taking his time, with the decision. Yeah, he's drawing things out. Yeah, he's a little bit of a narcissist and egotistical. Okay, so what? This is his last stop in his NFL career. If it's in Pittsburgh, I think we will get the best of Aaron Rodgers. I think we will get the best he has left. And as far as playing goes, I think he's got plenty left in the tank to make them more competitive at the quarterback position and on offense this year than the Steelers have been for a while. So just hear me out on that. Hopefully it made sense to you. You hear arguments from other people. Dave Dameshek hates the idea. Dave Dameshek has a lot of respect for great reasons in Steelers Nation, because he's maybe the most well-known voice outside of Pittsburgh for the Pittsburgh Steelers community, because he's a big fan of them and he has such a big podcast network and a big voice in that industry. And he does not want this to happen. He didn't want Russ last year. He and I had a conversation about that on X, about Russ. I was more on board with it. He ended up being right. Okay. He ended up being right about Russ was not a good fit for Pittsburgh in the end. And the fact that they didn't want him back at all costs, basically this year, is kind of proof that he was right. It did work for a little while, but it didn't end up working in the end. So he could be right about Aaron Rodgers too. I just have a little bit different feeling about that. I think that he's got a lot more in the tank than Russ had left. And I think that the issues that he would bring with him to Pittsburgh would be purely personal and not something that would transfer over to the organization and bring issue in the locker room with the coaching staff or wins or losses on the field. So that is my Rodgers rant for the night. Maybe I'll make that a thing. Rodgers rant until he signs. That may be this week. We've got 3 days until the big night at. If you guys are going to the big night at, let me know. If you're going there in Pittsburgh, anybody that lives there, we'll see. If that is when he announces it, so be it. I would not be surprised at all for the type of person Rodgers is. So, okay. That is my rant. That's the show. We're wrapping it up. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Like, subscribe if you're on YouTube, listening, watching. We've got so much content that you are missing if you are not clicking on that notification bell, liking and subscribing to our channel. If you're a Steelers fan and not subscribing, what are you doing? What are you doing? Tune in. We've got live shows every day of the week, every freaking day of the week. We've got audio shows, multiple audio shows every day of the week. Hop on, listen, watch, communicate, come to the steelcurtainnetwork.com, read my articles, read Jeff's articles, read Dave's articles, read everybody's articles. Andrew puts articles out there for all the draft picks. He's doing such amazing work with the draft. We're going to be coming out with our top 32 players that we did on the Steelers Fix from on the Draft Dynasty podcast from a couple weeks ago. That's coming out this week. So FFSN.com, steelcurtainnetwork.com, your one-stop shops for all NFL draft, all your Pittsburgh Steelers draft news and notes, off-season stuff. We've got you covered. That's it for me. Thank you all for tuning in. Without you, this show isn't possible. Looking forward to talking to you next week again here on the Steelers.
Living a good life.